Welcome to the pod presented by Invesco QQQ, the official ETF of the NCAA. Sport is nothing but entertaining and coming from all directions. But this is something we have talked about. Regular listeners know we have been pointing this out for years and discussed it many, many times. The college football calendar makes no sense. That said, it makes no sense that we have essentially professional football operations attached to a institution of higher learning that has its own calendar. And as these two things come together, it's always been a awkward situation, and it's very awkward right now because how the heck do you handle this transfer portal when kids need to enroll in school? And that's the inherent logjam here. But everything bubbled up this week, mainly with Penn State backup quarterback Beau Pribula, and he entering the portal and leaving the Nittany Lion football team. Now, he is a backup, but he does play some. I think it was 9 of 11 throwing. He jumps in as sort of a change of pace guy to Drew Aller. But so he is not only depth that they could use in case Drew Aller gets hurt. Penn State might play 4 football games. And let's not kid ourselves, they're going to be favored in the first 2. So this could be a long stretch, a long run. You need your guys. But he also is a strategic part of every game plan, and he is leaving because Drew Aller announced that he's coming back. Now, he didn't need to publicly announce that, but he did. But even if he privately did, Pribula needed to find a place to play. We'll get to more of that. Also, we have questions of what is Quinn Ewers, the Texas quarterback, going to do? He is in this odd world where he is not projecting right now to be a high first-round draft pick like many expected of the former overall number 1 recruit, but he's certainly a good quarterback, and he could lead Texas to the national championship here and maybe change his draft stock, or he could, who knows what happens, and he's good enough to come back to Texas, or maybe he sits there and says, maybe he plays at a level where Texas sits there and says, hey, look, Quinn, we got Arch Manning sitting there behind you. We're going to go with Arch next year. Is going to have a better chance. Maybe then Quinn's got to go, or Arch Manning's got to go. As you know, you have these 2 guys. There's word North Carolina with old Manning friend Bill Belichick has got a stockpile of money, hoping to get either Quinn or Arch. Belichick coaching a Manning is its own drama. Then we have the same situation going on with so Penn State's opponent. I'm all over the place because this is all over the place. SMU is Penn State's opponent. Their backup quarterback, Preston Stone, is also in the portal and is going to leave the team, but he is staying with the Mustangs through the playoff, which a lot of other guys are doing. Kenny Dillingham, the coach at Arizona State, they don't play this weekend. They don't play till January 1. He has guys that are in the portal that are going to stick with him. Not only is he supportive of it, he's out there reposting them on social media and putting little, hey, he's a great player, hard worker, great. Like he's part of the sales job. He's their agent. But they're going to stick with the Sun Devils through, or he's offering that. So we have this completely odd situation where we know guys are leaving and they have to start the process of discussing leaving and finding a place to go while still playing for their current team. We get this a little in the NFL. Most people think Sam Darnold at Minnesota Vikings will not be with the team next year, that they will, even with the great season he had, that they'll still end up going with J.J. McCarthy, who they drafted last year because he's going to be cheaper and all that. Maybe we'll see how that breaks out. So Sam Darnold probably isn't long-term in Minnesota, but his agent isn't fielding offers on where to go. And he isn't maybe potentially like on the phone with, whoever needs a quarterback, the Giants or something like that, and saying, hey, you need me. So this whole thing is very, very confusing. But it really spiked because the decision by James Franklin, a lot of names, James Franklin, Penn State coach, to come out and say that the current, he defended Pribula's decision, and then he came out basically and said this is This needs reform, and we need a college football commissioner to sort all this stuff out. So a lot there. It's all coming to a head. I think there's actually a fairly easy path here. Pribula staying with the team and finding a new place, but each guy makes a decision. But obviously, it's not ideal. Pat, your thoughts on this quarterback transfer portal chaos / storyline, if it's really all that chaotic, in this week?
Yeah, there's another one too. Devin Smith, the backup. Devin Brown, I'm sorry, the backup at Ohio State.
Right. And Air Norland, who didn't play at all for Ohio State, but he's leaving Ohio State. Anyway, I didn't even get to half of it, and that was long.
Yeah. No,
I was getting bored in the middle of my talk there, so I don't want to talk
Texas has,
that
I think, a backup D lineman, too, that's in the portal, so,
yeah. Look, ideally, if you have created a system where people are leaving teams that have a chance to win a national championship, the system's broken, right? It's not a good system. Fixing it is not easy. I personally, every situation is different, and Beau Pribula probably has a better read on his than most people. And the one thing he hasn't done, he's played a lot this year, scored 9 touchdowns, but he hasn't really put starting quarterback tape together for people to see. If you have, I'm not sure you need to be there for spring ball. I think you could wait this thing out and show up later after your spring semester is over. But I'm sure there are people out there who will say that's ridiculous. You need to be enrolled in January and be there. But I would, in an ideal world, and in what athletics is supposed to be about, which is not just solely, I am cutting and running because I need to go make a deal somewhere, but let's go win something. You don't. You stay there. You stay and you play until your team's eliminated. And who knows? I mean, with that, Beau Pribula, as you said, they are going to be favored this Saturday. If they win that, they'll be favored in the next game. It could be January 9th before they lose. They may not lose at all. Could be January 20th. Now, Julian Sayin left Alabama when in like February or something and ended up at Ohio State last year. So, things can get done with an academic calendar,
right? He was a recruit. Yeah, he started.
Yeah, right. But I mean, he I think he had already enrolled at Alabama.
He had enrolled.
I think he did. Yeah, he enrolled. Yeah,
and left.
3 weeks.
Well, after sometime after Saban, retired. So things are fungible. But the other thing, and you touched on this a bit, Dan, with NFL agents, these guys all have agents, and the agents hopefully could be doing some enough background information work to at least, start the process and get the process pretty far down the line. Say, hey, these 5 schools are interested in you. Which ones are you interested in? But please, let's try to finish the season.
Yeah, I wonder if Penn State's chances of making it deep into the playoff, whether that's through 1 round or 2, impacted this decision, right? It's like, well, either you're gonna be with the team for all of it, or be with the team for none of it. I wonder if that was involved. I talked to somebody who, and James Franklin's quotes were good enough to use, but talked to some folks that were kind of had a little more knowledge too of the quarterback situation there at Penn State and in Pribula's decision, and they brought up agents. One of the comments was that the agents have all the control and the players are put in these awful situations, and I assume that can only mean that. And this person also said, if he didn't go now, he would lose the opportunity to a starting spot. So. This quarterback transfer market right now obviously is really highly competitive, and it's a lucrative one too, as we know. And the quarterback market doesn't seem to wait for anybody. So I'm sure particulars of this will come out at some point. But one of the things I wanted to bring up was the timing of the transfer portal, and I think that when you look at what the NCAA committees, which are made up of school administrators, as a reminder, did this past year, they shortened the transfer window. from 45 days split into 2 windows, obviously the fall and the spring, to 30 days total. And there was a fear in doing that there would be legal challenges, ramifications. Moving the transfer portal from the fall to just having one in the spring would be almost certainly inviting more legal action. That's a big reason why I don't expect them to do it and why they haven't done it. I'm sure there'll be discussion on more timing. You guys remember earlier this fall, we talked about it. I think there was a proposal to have one portal window to actually eliminate the spring window and just have it in the fall. But again, for legal reasons, but also because of this new rev share stuff coming and the new roster structure, they decided to leave it at 2. So it's a complicated issue. And as Dan led off with, major college athletics, major football, college football, being tethered to higher education in the academic calendar is probably an untenable situation. And we talked about it now for 2-3 years. And this is part of it. This is a good example of it right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. But think about what we're actually saying here is that you really can't have college football anymore. You need to have semi-professional football that licenses a nickname and school colors and rents a stadium, and nobody goes to school, and the coaches aren't employees of the universities. I mean, that's what we're basically talking about here. Awesome. Just awesome.
Yep. Yeah. That's what happens when the money gets so big. I think you become, in the courts say, you got to pay players, right? Basically, that's what's happening. The courts are saying the money's so big, you got to share this money. If you share the money, all of a sudden you're a professional entity, and that's going to impact all of this academic higher education stuff. I don't think anybody wants to see what Pat just described, but sure feels like we're heading there.
I don't know. I think there's solutions to this if people get serious about it. I mean, we're just not going to have the Penn State's football team is going to be made up of people who aren't students at Penn State at all. I first off, the tax implications and things like that would overwhelm. Right now, these are just extracurricular activities. There's some serious money you'd lose. I get this. This is a problem, and is a clunky problem. Pat's point is fine. What gets me was like Monday. Whenever a lot of people who don't really cover college sports start weighing in on NCAA legislative issues, and as we know, like, I mean, I cover college football, and I need Ross to help me through half this stuff still, right? Because it's super complicated. And it's like I can sit there and say something like, boy, Congress should pass this law that makes total sense. I don't know, right? Pave the roads or something. And it's like, well, this is how it works, right? It's like we thought of that, but we can't do that for whatever reason, right? There's complicated solutions. And so a lot has to happen. Like, people are like, okay, you got to stay through the spring. How do you make someone go to a college that they don't want to go to? How do you, half the time these coaches want to blame this. Everyone wants to blame the NCAA and the system. And as much as I appreciated James Franklin's comments, which were mostly really good, when he's just like, who's really running and making the best decisions? And we need a commissioner. And everyone's like, yeah, let Nick Saban do it. Like, these guys aren't necessarily going through all of it. Ideally, we move the season back into the summer. Like, you got to get the semifinals done by January 1. That would eliminate a lot of this. And then kids could enroll. The idea that you can just sit there and be like, well, you can't transfer, you're stuck with your team. Again, we're playing a game on January 20th because we're not willing to take on we're not really willing to make some real statements, like we either move the season back or we get rid of the conference championship games, or we tell the Bulls to go pound sand or whatever. Like, there's a lot of... Or you just
program up against the NFL.
Or you program up against the NFL and deal with it. One of the things, I think I mentioned it, I've said this many times with the shoe companies, and I mentioned in the last episode, like the baffling idea that Louisville and Kansas took hundreds of millions of dollars from Adidas and then said, wait, we work for you? Like college athletics likes to pretend they're the boss. And then they take $1 billion from a TV network. And it doesn't work that way. You need widespread reform that is going to anger the coaches, right? Because the coaches will complain about everything. Ross, one of the things this year has been we're going to cut the rosters down so that we can have revenue sharing. Because everyone says, we need guardrails. We need something to even out this. It's not fair. We have money coming into our athletic department, but we don't have a billionaire booster. So it's not fair for an NIL. We need to be able to pay the players. Okay, so this is how you have to do it. We have to cut the roster down, and then you have a pool of money you can pay. It's a good solution. It's a solution. It's not maybe the perfect solution, but it is a step towards a solution. And then they all go, you're getting rid of the walk-ons. This is the craziest thing. They all bitch, right? They just complain about everything.
Yeah.
And so to me, if I'm looking at this in a real way to do it, I don't know how you don't have kids in the transfer portal during the playoff, because I don't, if any of these guys wants to, they have to find a spot. I mean, look, just a couple days, Miller Moss takes the Louisville job. Jackson Arnold takes the Auburn job. Like, if you're one of these quarterbacks, you're going, wait, I want it. There's not an infinite number of quarterback positions out there. So you want to grab one of these jobs while you can. I don't know why Pribula isn't sticking with Penn State. I don't know the reason for that. Maybe he's got a good reason. Maybe James Franklin doesn't want him. Maybe they couldn't work it. Whatever it is, you should be able to negotiate and say, hey, I'm out of here at the end of the year. We see that in pro sports. They're going to be a free agent. This is a rental. You even see it in baseball or hockey or basketball. So we're basically getting a rental here. This guy, we're bringing him in. We're bringing in a left-handed arm for the playoffs, right? And we're probably not going to get to keep him long-term. You can do that, but you have to do some things to try to help it out. And that includes maybe getting rid of the conference championship game or moving games into week 0 to try to get this thing done, or going up against the NFL, or telling bowl games, sorry, only 2 of you get a bowl game. I'm sorry, Rose Bowl, tough break. But what you can't do is try to please all of those other masters and cry that we can't break this tradition and then go, this is a mess. Well, the mess is the vice of the calendar that you're in. There are ways to alleviate some of this. And some of these coaches, what seemed impossible to imagine a coach doing even 3 years ago, you see the innovative coaches doing. Kenny Dillingham going, we don't care. Right? Go ahead. You're in the portal, but you're playing with us. We're happy about it, right? Because he's 34 years old or whatever, and he's not tied to, I know, what you get too much when you talk to, imagine telling Woody Hayes, you're going to leave, but you want to still play. Well, what are you in here?
Right. Yeah.
So a lot's got to happen. There's got to be a lot of give if you want to solve this quote unquote problem. It's clunky, but at the end of the day, you're talking about lots of movement on a calendar, or a couple backup QBs getting kind of in a weird situation.
Yeah, no, that's a well-stated point. When I said broken system, it's fixable. I think what you outlined are ways that can fix it.
Your point were right. I'm not criticizing you. It was just a lot of like, the NCAA is so dumb.
No,
we criticize the NCAA a lot here, but let's be fair and criticize them when they deserve to be criticized, not on this.
Yeah. The academic calendars, basically have existed since who knows when, the 1800s or whatever. This is kind of how college works and how actually all of education runs on a pretty similar calendar. The football calendar is what has gotten warped and changed, and the expanded playoff is the biggest change in that. And the fact that it's going to roll till January 20th. And so be a hell of a lot easier to change the football calendar than to change the academic calendar, or to completely try to go where we just talked about going and let's just dismantle college athletics as a thing. So there are ways to do this. You could, week 0, no conference championships, go head to head with the NFL, whatever. There are ways to make this so that the conflicts that are causing so many problems, there are fewer or less. Yeah.
Right. There are fewer of them. But you gotta have, you can't sit there and say, we want all the money. We want all the money, but then go, well, we got this academic thing. This is just something's got to go. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ross, you got any, what are your guys saying? You had the Georgia president calling this bedlam out there. Bedlam.
Yeah.
Is that the new wild west term?
Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's the new term. He was, part of this, and I think we talked about this issue before when I wrote a story about it last month. But right now, along with all this other stuff going on, there's a transition period happening from how players are getting paid, right, through collectives and boosters, and then now it's transitioning to schools with the House case and the settlement revenue share, which starts in July. But there's this 7-month transition period till July. And schools are trying to basically, they're front loading contracts with the players to try to pay them a large percentage of their contracts before July 1 hits, so that the contracts aren't subject to the new enforcement model. So there's probably more money in the system right now going out than ever. And it's certainly making people very uncomfortable how that money is getting into the hands, how these transactions are happening. And Jerry Moorhead of Georgia, the Georgia president, who I saw out in Las Vegas, he was specifically, I think, talking about that issue, which he basically said the NCAA should go back and, as he put it, unwind these deals and these contracts that are with boosters, because they go against the settlement. And though the settlement isn't approved yet, it's been preliminary approved, and then the NCAA and the Power League should go back and penalize or dissolve these deals. So there's that happening too. There's a lot happening right now.
Yeah,
but
it's one a lot going on. More football specific. What do you think of the Texas situation? Quinn Ewers, is he going to be back at Texas?
I can tell you this. I was in Columbus yesterday, and on Sports Talk Radio, they're ready for Quinn Ewers to come back to Ohio State.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
He would have suitors out there. It would be a really weird, odd career path. But we're in a weird, odd period. That's for sure.
They got quarterbacks. I mean, they have Julian Sayin. That seems to be the guy that they're going with next year, but that's next year. The Arch Manning, Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers has got a lot at stake in this playoff. We talk about all the different people who have a lot at stake.
Does.
And he could be first round draft pick, or he could be transferring.
Well, what's crazy, right, is to think that a 3-year, right, or at least 2-year, 3-year starting quarterback at a power conference school who led his team to the conference championship game once, in the conference championship last year, into the playoff both years, could be returning for another year in college instead of going to make money in the NFL. And it gives you a good idea of probably the money that he's making in college now, that he's able to say, pass on that NFL money. It's pretty wild to even think about that we're here at this point. I don't know anything insidery about that situation. He obviously hasn't made any kind of announcement, whether he's coming back or going. Even though the money is obviously good in college, you wouldn't be thinking about it. But it's just hard. You still have to go to class and stuff. Like, you're on a campus. Like, I just wonder if some of these guys are not ready to go to the next level for other reasons than money. So it just, I don't know, it kind of strikes me that this would be the time to go to the NFL for him. He's accomplished so much in college, but then again, I don't know.
It's fun being a college football quarterback.
It is,
right?
I know.
College is fun.
Right.
Making a few million.
How many times have we all said, God, I'd like to be back in college?
Yeah. And the
Without
NFL,
making a few million.
The onset of NIL like 3 years ago, I remember hearing from people in college, that, the NFL is worried. Like, worried about what? This is what they're worried about. What we're seeing right now in college. really good college players not going to the NFL immediately like they normally
Worried.
would. I don't know that the NFL should be worried. Yeah, I don't know the NFL should be worried. But certainly there's a lot of players probably last year and we're going to see this year that are going to choose to stay in college when they probably could be starters or certainly compete for starting jobs in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, that's the other side of the bedlam, which is, a net positive for all of it. All right. We'll be back right after this. Okay. It's time for some money moves presented by Invesco QQQ, the official ETF of the NCAA. Big money story right now, as if we weren't talking a little about money there, but that was more calendar, is the decision on Monday by Florida State coach Mike Norvell to give back $4.5 million in his salary to help fund Florida State's revenue share pool, put it into the revenue share pool for football players. Now, Norvell, obviously last offseason, after going 13-0 in the regular season championship game, was a hot commodity. Alabama had some discussions with him. I don't know how far that got, but Florida State swooped in and offered him a contract that hit about $9.9 million per year, could get up to 11. They promptly went out and won 2 football games. So, he said, well, maybe I didn't earn that. Good on him. Good on him on that. But he is throwing
was it
money.
His idea or was it someone else's idea?
I don't know whose idea
we may never know.
Yeah.
Well, they were going to have to owe him 70. Let me tell you about my man, Jimbo.
Yeah. Right.
Old Jimbo he was a Florida State coach, and then he was over there in College Station. He said, pay me.
Yeah.
Pay me.
Sure did.
But you want to coach, you want a better chance to win, you put $4.5 million back into your pool of money. And there is a limited amount a school can provide, but this certainly helps Florida State do that. It may help some scholarships at other sports. It may help keep athletic department jobs, whatever. Mike Norvell's taking a haircut. He's still going to make $6.5 million. So, most of us would be willing to trade that W-2.
Yeah.
Brian Kelly at LSU, meanwhile, offered up $1 million in a kind of a donation that could be matched by boosters. He would match up to $1 million, so it'd basically be a $2 million extra for the LSU collective. So the money moves is, man, coaches giving money back. There's one I never thought I'd see.
Yeah, it's funny, Dan. We talk about how athletic departments for the last decades have in 3 ways blown through all their football profit, right? They pump all of the football profit basically back into the university and the athletic department. So when it comes to time like this rev share world of we need all this money, $20 million if you want to compete, at the highest level, $20 million a year to start with, like where's this money going to come from? How are they going to find this money? And these 3 ways that they pumped it back in to Olympic sports to obviously sustain Olympic sports. Well, you can't do a whole lot of cutting there because some Title IX stuff and potential other legal issues. And then facility stuff, we've seen that slow down a little bit, right? And then the third thing is coaching salaries and staff salaries. And you thought, well, they've committed all this money to these salaries, these contracts are done. These agents are going to be like, yeah, let's just rework our coach's contract and he could take a reduction. Well, holy shit, lo and behold, we're having it happen, and it's happened at Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy, which sounds like that was the school's idea to reduce his salary and redistribute it, you might say, to the roster. And then you saw, like you mentioned, Brian Kelly. And then this is the biggest one yet with the school and Mike Norvell. This is a 1-year thing. So they restructured the deal for 1 year, I've heard only.
Oh, okay.
It is, but we'll see what happens next year. I guess it just kind of depends maybe what happens. But yeah, it's a $4.5 million kind of 1-year contribution for now. And that's a lot of money. You think about, football rosters are going to be around $15 million, something like that the first year, or so. Like 20 million is the cap, and about 80% of it will probably be schools will probably give to football. So $4.5 million of the 15 million is, roughly a third of what Florida State's going to spend on your roster. That's a lot of money. That probably, 20 pays 20 to 30 backups, or pays 5 to 10 starters potentially. So to me, it's a wise move, especially, these 3 coaches that have done this, or the schools have done this for them, however you want to view it, obviously didn't have the best seasons, right, this past year. I mean, Brian Kelly had the best one at 8-4, but at 8-4 would get you fired. Too many 8-4s get you fired at LSU. So it's not the best year. So that's an interesting wrinkle too. Maybe we'll start seeing that. Maybe that's a trend, right? I heard there's at least 2 more coaches, by the way, that are in the middle of doing this with their administration. They're talking about doing this. So I would guess we'll see a lot more of this.
Yeah, I think it's very smart. I think it's great. And we've talked about exactly this sort of thing before. Dan, how many times have you said it, that eventually we're going to get to the point where the players are making more than the coaches? This is one of the ways you get there. We've talked a lot about the incredible salary bloat, not just staff sizes, but how much people get paid. This is a responsible, smart redistribution of your money. And we have seen, Ross, you laid out the 3 things, but one of the things we've seen with the Olympic sports, I mean, roster size is coming down. There are places right now, I know, schools where coaches are having talks with their spring sports saying, after next year, you're going to have to go. They're having to tell players, they're having to tell recruits, we can't bring you in or we can't keep you. So those things are happening. But this is a way football can take care of itself to a degree. Stop overpaying the coaches and the underperforming coaches. As you said, these are the coaches that have no leverage to sit there and say, I'm worth every dollar. You're not. Mike Norvell sure wasn't worth $10 million this year. So I applaud this as a smart move that I wasn't sure I would ever see athletic directors or universities get around to doing. I wasn't sure they ever had the backbone to stand up to a football coach, a big-time football coach, and say, we need some of that money back.
Yeah, it's and it's funny, for a long time, coaches, there were different scandals that would come up, and the coaches would actually, sometimes coaches would use booster money to pay players under the table, and sometimes they'd use their own. And, you thought it's a basic business, right? Now they weren't making as much, but if you're making $10 million a year, but you got to spend 4.5 to make it, most of us, again, profit. If you're just calling yourself a business, it's a nice profit off of expenses, right? You're making over 100, whatever that be, 120% profit margin, 66.5 over 4.5. It's definitely an interesting trend, but man, you see coaches, they're not giving up on seasons now. They're sitting there going, well, if I only win 2, I got to give back 4.5. If I got to 4 wins, maybe I don't have to give back $3 million.
Yeah.
Day's coming, though. These coaches' salaries have to come back to that's one that's going to come back to reality. And
at least the buyouts.
At least the buyouts, yeah.
Yeah. At the very least. You would think the buyouts won't be contracts that aren't fully guaranteed. But then again, I say that in, I don't know, this round of coaches, I haven't seen all their contracts yet, but I don't know if that's happened yet.
Yeah. Well, it is the latest. There's a lot. So
that was another thing I did pick up in Columbus yesterday. A lot of people wondering when Ryan Day's going to give back some money.
Oh,
matter of fact, somebody even asked him about it at the press conference, and he said, "Well, we're kind of thinking about Tennessee right now." So,
oh, really? Wow, somebody asked him. Interesting.
Yeah. You're gonna give
so, what do you
money?
think about this? And is it the kind of thing you would ever consider doing?
Well, they're already allegedly spending $20 million. How much more do they need to spend on a roster?
Right.
I mean, my God.
Well, we'll see. $20 million so far didn't even get him a first round bye.
I know.
Wow, that's a tough question at the presser.
Yeah,
that is
he
a tough
handled it well.
question.
He deflected it immediately to, well, we're thinking about Tennessee. That's what's on our mind right now.
I will say this: Columbus media, Ohio State media does a really good job with all these. They'll ask anything. And Ryan
gosh.
Day does a really good job handling it. And
He does.
it is probably an underrated skill set that people aren't contemplating. But when you want your next coach, like this could be a mess. Now, if you're winning, no one's asking questions like that.
Right.
I don't recall anyone ever asking Urban Meyer when you're giving money back. But Ryan Day handles some tough questions, and kudos to some of these Ohio State writers and radio guys and whatever that will ask pretty much anything about money moves. Ryan Day's money. All right. Thanks to Invesco QQQ, the official ETF of the NCAA, for that money moves segment. Another move, coaching move. Michael Vick is suddenly interviewing on both coasts. Didn't see this one coming. We have this trend of great players becoming coaches. Deion Sanders obviously being the most prominent. I think as recently as there's very, very rare that an NFL player becomes a coach. Jim Harbaugh is one of the rare who, traditional coach. Deion Sanders has now done it. Eddie George is at Tennessee State. Now we have Michael Vick jumping in. He was linked to the job at Norfolk State. That's a bad word for me, isn't it? Norfolk State.
You did fine.
Norfolk State. This is a bad word
close,
for me.
Dan. It's close.
It's really close, and I'm just going to say NSU. Do they call it NSU? Okay.
Yeah.
He's up at NSU. Also, Sacramento State apparently is talking to him, and they got, of course, they have a pledge of $50 million, maybe if they get in the Pac-12, but that's been reported that they have $50 million in NIL. They had $50 million in NIL to spend next season. They would have gotten Bill Belichick to take the job. But Ross, what are you hearing about Michael Vick? Exciting player.
Yeah. It was quite a wild Monday. I saw, it started with, I think it's David Teal over at, what's the outlet?
It's a Norfolk paper, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think he just works down there.
Well,
I don't know.
He works for like a group of newspapers. Yeah. Anyway, they had reported
long-time
that Vick,
journalist, voice of the Tidewater.
Yeah, great, covers the ACC really well. Reported that Vick was interviewing for Norfolk.
Aha!
NSU.
NSU is interviewing at NSU, as people would know what NSU is too. And that certainly piqued a lot of people's interest. What? Michael Vick? He's from there, obviously. So it makes a little sense. And then the report from ESPN from Adam Schefter that Vick was interviewing across the country at Sacramento State, which let me quickly dish on Sacramento State. They have been pushing now for 3 months, pretty hard, pretty publicly, to get into the FBS, to get in the Pac-12 specifically, but also maybe the Mountain West. And if you talk to those two conferences, I'm just saying what those two conferences say. It's not my opinion. They say, no way, not a shot, no way in hell that they're adding Sacramento State. Just they've been very clear about it, leaders at those two leagues. But it has not stopped Sacramento State. They are pushing. They are pushing out a lot of numbers and information, a new stadium, alleged $50 million in NIL that they have raised, and obviously a lot of other funding numbers and things like that. And now, right, they have maybe perhaps somebody affiliated with the school has pushed out or at least told ESPN, and ESPN's probably most followed reporter, that they've interviewed Michael Vick, and he's interested in the job. And the school president, I think, came out and said that they have interviewed him. So it's clear that perhaps this is all together a push to get that school and keep that school in the news, and get them maybe to move on to another conference, get the attention of the Pac-12 in the Mountain West. And I will say, talking to people over there, there's a lot of money in that area, right? I mean, we all know Pat spends a lot of time, I think, in that area. Stanford, the Bay Area and all that. It's not that far from that. I mean, there's a lot of money out there. And so I think there's some truth behind it. But I think everybody should keep that, keep that in the back of their mind as they see a lot of these reports about this issue.
Right now, Sac State is like, and I can't remember the assistant basketball coach's name, but at UCLA like 20 years ago, every time there was an opening, he would call somebody in the media and say, "Hey, I'm involved there. I'm involved there." And he never got any of the jobs. But his name, it became this kind of running joke. Oh, and so, is a candidate at, every freaking job. That's kind of Sac State is trying to play that game right now. And some people apparently are willing to listen, at least when the agent of an NFL player, a prominent former NFL player, is involved. So it was an entertaining media fight, at least on Monday, regarding Sac State. But
enjoyable.
Michael Vick wants to coach the Tidewater area. I mean, that's where he's from. And I mean, he was an absolute legend there. I don't know, how much that would resonate. I would think it would resonate some. I don't know what kind of staff he could put together, but NSU sounds like a potentially intriguing spot for him.
I'm reading David Teal and Michael Saul's story in the Virginia Pilot, and they used the term NSU.
So, okay, there we go.
Good. Feel good about
locally, it. I'm like a local there.
Norfolk.
Yeah.
Folk.
Vic. The whole thing's a little. It makes sense. All right. Hey, they said they've been out without a coach for a month. Get a little pop in your program. Who knows, right? The guy's never coached.
Yeah.
So but at least that made more sense than Sacramento State.
Yeah.
Or when these guys try to get like high major jobs and have never coached.
Yeah.
Like give Dion, give Eddie George credit. Like they're going out there and they're getting in the trenches and saying, all right, I'm going to do this.
Absolutely.
Not just because if you just think Michael Vick, obviously incredible player, a very, very, very personable guy, but and a legend in that area. But if you think that every kid in the area is going to suddenly be like, oh, I'm going to play for you at NSU and I'm not going to go to somewhere else. Like, that's not how this, you're not that cool. Nobody is.
No. Right.
Nobody is.
Just the fact these schools are considering this is a coach with like zero coaching experience, zero, is shocking and is a sign of the times, where we, administrators and all of us, even in the media, and people think of a head coach in college as having to be an expert on schematics and X's and O's and write all that stuff and, running. And now, that's not as big of a concern. The bigger concern is, honestly, how can we get in the press? How can we drum up interest in our program? Maybe it's not the worst in the world. I mean, you saw it with Dion, but Dion's a little different, right? He had some coaching experience. When Jackson State hired him. So I don't know if that's a great comparison, but certainly a part of Dion and a part of Belichick, as we discussed a few episodes ago, is like the interest level in getting people to pay attention to your program and getting interest and thus getting more attention and thus getting more money, right? It kind of all goes back to that. And it's really interesting. It's just been this interesting movement in the kind of the coaching hiring process.
Need money, fundraiser. Nobody fundraises like these star players, I guess. I mean, it's a tough spot if you're NSU.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back right after this. Talk a little Notre Dame. So we'll talk more. We talked some of the games in the last episode. We're going to talk more on Thursday's episode, more specifically about these matchups. So we understand there is a playoff going on, but we've discussed, we put in some work on these already, even last week. But I didn't want to talk about Notre Dame. They just extended Marcus Freeman. He's done an excellent job, proven to be a good coach for Notre Dame and kind of what Notre Dame's looking for. They host Indiana on Friday night. And I look at these games and there's there's different levels of significance to these playoffs. And it's not that every team doesn't want to win the national title or every team doesn't have a ton at stake. At some level, they all have the same thing at stake. But let's say Georgia doesn't win it all, or loses in the first when they host in the quarterfinals or whatever they play in the quarterfinals, which would be the Indiana Notre Dame. No one's going to say the Georgia program's fraudulent. No one's going to say Georgia's not any good or Kirby Smart can't coach or anything. It's just a loss, right? Notre Dame's got more to prove at a different level. They are 0-9, I have them, in major bowl games since winning the Cotton Bowl over Texas A&M in 1993. They're only 8-16 in any bowl game, but they've had some small, and they were in a Pinstripe Bowl once and things like that. Their record against top 10 teams under Brian Kelly and Marcus Freeman has not been great. They are known as a team that can be good, but not great. And here it's all set up for them to have what would perhaps be their biggest win since, I don't know, you tell me, Pat, Friday night at home playoff game against Indiana. And not only is there maybe an expectation that, fair or not, based on laundry, whether they should win, but this is Indiana, in-state rival that they historically have been the vastly superior and celebrated football program. They're at home, all of that, and then they would go get a crack at Georgia, which is bringing in a backup, second-string quarterback, likely, granted a good one. So how much is at stake narrative-wise, for lack of a better term, do we have here Friday, Pat?
Oh, I think a ton. Absolute ton. To me, it's one of those games. Notre Dame is not going to get enough credit if they win, but they're going to get buried if they lose because it's Indiana and people don't respect Indiana. They should. I mean, I think this is going to be a good competitive game. But if you're Notre Dame and you win that and then you get to Georgia, then I think the Georgia game, Dan, becomes the biggest game for Notre Dame since the BCS championship game against Alabama when they absolutely got freight trained and it was so boring that you went to write about A.J. McCarron's girlfriend.
They're still together, great. By the way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I identify those great love stories. Don't get me in on Travis Hunter and his girlfriend. I'm
not. But no, and I mean Notre Dame's. I would say Notre Dame hasn't won a truly huge game since 1993 against Florida State when they were 1-2, and it was like on the cover of SI, and it was the biggest game in many years. So there's a lot riding here, I think, for Notre Dame in the playoff. Absolutely. There is still, Notre Dame has just done two things, I would say, in the Brian Kelly, Marcus Freeman era. They've showed they can still compete. They have not showed they can win the big ones. And so that's what they're trying to do. They have established themselves as a perennial top 10 program, but they haven't showed themselves to be a national championship caliber program. They haven't won one since 1988.
Yeah, let's go through these. Fiesta Bowl.
Joe, our resident Notre Dame fan, does not want to go through this.
Poor Joe.
Sorry.
2022 Fiesta Bowl. 2-point loss to Oklahoma State. 2021.
When they led, I think they led that one 28-0 or 28-7.
Did they really? Oh, wow.
Yes.
That was Freeman as interim coach.
That was Freeman as interim coach, and they came out on fire, and then reality came back.
Yep.
That was a good Oklahoma State team.
And then the year before, of course, was a semifinal loss to Alabama in the Rose Bowl, 31-14. That one was not close. They didn't lead that one, I don't think, at any point. And there's the Cotton Bowl semifinal, of course, 2018 playoff against Clemson, 30-3. Fiesta Bowl in 2015, the 2015 season, not close, 44-28 to Ohio State. And then, of course, the BCS National Championship game, a 28-point blowout to Alabama in 2013. And then we're back to Sugar Bowl against LSU, and that one same thing, about 27 point blowout to LSU in the 2006 season Sugar Bowl. And the year before that, Ohio State lost, 2-touchdown loss to Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. It goes on and on. Oregon State, 2000 Fiesta Bowl, 41-9.
Trucked them. That was Bob Davie.
I mean, these are brutal. Yeah. And then, of course, the last couple up until the 1993, you got the 1995 and 1996 Orange and Fiesta Bowls, losses to Florida State and Colorado. One of them somewhat close. Florida State game 31-26, Colorado not very close. So not only are these losses, but yeah, many of these are blowout. More than half of these are 2-touchdown plus losses. So I don't know that this, like as Pat said, I don't know that this one can be considered in this group. I mean, it is a playoff game, but it's at home against Indiana. The real one certainly is going to be if they move on, and that Sugar Bowl against Georgia will be pressure packed. Can Notre Dame finally win one against a potentially backup quarterback?
This would ease it, though. This will be a great scene if they can defeat Indiana.
Yes.
And then you get that shot. At least there's something positive in a postseason. And it would mean a great deal. Marcus Freeman's got a different type of roster. I love the direction that they're going at, all of those things. But it is a statement game to say this is the new Notre Dame. This picked up, their portal's working right now. It's grabbed a defensive back out of Alabama, and this team has got a lot of high-end talent and athletes on it that you look and go, boy, this is impressive, but we got to see what they can do. And so to me, winning this game would ease some of the Georgia situation. But there is a bit where Georgia's a little rattled, and Georgia has not been, this is not the Georgia juggernaut maybe we're expecting. There is certainly a path here for Notre Dame to make quite a run. And don't think Notre Dame fans haven't noticed it, but baby steps there, Irish. Baby steps. This program, great pageantry, great campus, great stadium, great fight song, great helmets, all the stuff. Can they be great when it matters? And they haven't been in a long, long time. All right, let's wrap this up with quite a job here that People's Court. It's basically time of the year. People go on vacation. They go to pool hotels, right? Hotels with pools. You go to Florida, you go to Hawaii, you go to wherever you're going, and you sit around the pool.
The hell are you talking about, Dan?
I'm kind of intrigued at this job that I made us quit and do this job. The pool chair policeman.
What?
Oh yeah. I've seen these guys.
What?
Yeah.
The Wall Street Journal did a whole story on this. At the Maui Ocean Club, Marriott's Maui Ocean Club. This is a great assignment, by the way. This woman, Dawn Gilbertson, said she sat there. She followed the guy around or watched him for 2 days by a pool in Maui.
Yeah, we all want that byline and that dateline in that story.
Yeah, I'm stuck with you two talking about backup quarterback transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, Tom Cooper, he runs around. So before 7 a.m., you got to get down there, and people come down and they take like 10 towels and they spread out and try to grab the whole area.
Mm-hmm.
You're only allowed, you can only save 2 spots, you and a friend. And you have to be there at least, you have to check in every hour or they're going to take those gone. And he gets a lot of heat, a lot of blowback from the people complaining. This is a new rule, all this stuff. They call it sharing is caring. He's been called the pool seat Nazi, the pool lease. A lot of bitterness out there. There was some snarky comments, different stuff. People trying to pull my teenager's coming down. Like, then that kid's sleeping until like 11:30 at least. Pat, I feel like you'd be really good at this job. You would just love just walking around ruining people's day as they try to leave towels and be like, nah. Like Dikembe Mutombo.
Yeah. I think I would.
Could you do this job?
This is my retirement job. I'm going to Maui and I'm becoming a pool chair policeman. I could absolutely do this job in that location. That sounds ideal for me because, yes, I don't like people pulling a fast one on a scam like that. I'd be on them. I'd be watching them like a hawk. There would be no getting away with it. I would, I need the location. I need like geolocators on all your people you're trying to allegedly stave chairs for. I need contact information for them. Yeah, no, I'm set with this. Tom Cooper is my new role model. Bring it on.
Ross, could you do the job?
I know these people.
Yeah.
I've seen these people. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like
I've been
those
policed
people.
before by some of these chair guys. Sounds like a good job, Dan. I would have trouble though. Seeing people, they're drinking and they're relaxing and they're in the pool and they're on the beach and then I'm there having to police people about their towels on the chair and saving chairs. So I could see it, being a little frustrating because I'd want to get in on the action. I'd want to get in the pool.
Yeah.
Is there anything that says you have to be sober to do this job?
It
doesn't seem like it's that hard.
Yeah.
I think you could have a couple pops while you're on duty.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's
I
true.
think you're allowed to drink. You can, as long as you're in the pool area. I think if you're in the pool, right, you're not getting your stuff thrown out. This is for those people. You'd see it. They get there at 6 a.m. Pool opens and they're standing there. They run out. They throw 10 towels down. They come back at 2 p.m. They go on a volcano excursion or something. I don't know what they're doing. Go play a round of golf. That's not right. That is not right. That can't stand. Tom Cooper is on the front lines of getting a better society. Now, if you got 2 seats, you're in the pool, you're throwing the football with your kid or something like that. You don't get out and you don't have to run over and sit down in your seat for 2 seconds. That's fine. And you're in the pool area, but we know who you are.
Oh, totally. The pool we go to in the summer can be very crowded, and it is chair free for all, man. I mean, somebody gets up and there's 3 people standing there. You leaving? Can we have it?
Nobody wants that.
No.
We need Tom Cooper on that wall.
We do.
Also, several years ago, I guess Cooper's wife was at the hotel, or she snuck her in. She put a couple things down with their grandkids, and then she went on a snorkeling trip. When she came back, her stuff was removed. Tom Cooper said she couldn't believe I removed her stuff. Quote, I make exceptions for no one.
I love it. Yes, Tom Cooper.
I've got sample Heisman. Tom Cooper.
Hell yeah. I got some in-laws that would try some of that stuff. I'd be throwing their stuff out too.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back Thursday. We'll talk all 4 playoff games. It's coming. We'll go even more detail on that. And whatever else hits chaotically.
We'll pick them, right? We're going to pick the games?
We'll pick them. Yeah, we'll pick them. Yeah. I mean, the race for the case is over, but we'll pick them. You guys don't want that humiliation to continue. So thanks for watching and listening. And thanks again to Invesco QQQ, the official ETF of the NCAA.